Have you ever wondered why some people can simply throw a cut branch into a glass of water and, after a few days, thick and healthy roots sprout, while for you, the stem simply turns into a brown and mushy mess? What if I told you it's not because you lack a green thumb? Today, I will show you how to grow a new and strong plant from absolutely any cutting in record time. There is a small secret often overlooked, a single, completely natural ingredient that you only need to add to the water, and your cuttings will literally explode with growth. Forget everything you have learned so far about plant propagation in a glass of water. Make sure to stay until the end, because I will also reveal a widespread myth that is secretly sabotaging your plants. Let's dive in and change your plant world forever. For generations, people have passed down knowledge about plant propagation. In the past, it was vital for survival to successfully clone crops to ensure the following year's harvest. Nowadays, we do it mainly for the love of our indoor plants or to beautify our gardens. The method of rooting in water is as old as gardening itself. You cut a shoot, put it in water, and wait. However, in nature, plants don't really grow in glasses of pure water. The transition from an intact plant to a separate piece is a massive shock to the tissue. The plant suddenly loses its source of nutrients, and its immune system weakens. It is exactly at this open cut where bacteria and fungi lurk, waiting to decompose the plant. The modern industry has invented chemical rooting hormones for this, but nature has long provided us with its own much better tools that we have simply forgotten over the decades. Today, we are bringing exactly these old, forgotten methods to light. Let's start immediately with the biggest frustration factor that we probably all know too well. You cut a beautiful branch from your favorite plant. Full of hope and love, you place it in a glass of clean water on the windowsill. And what happens then? After only 3 or 4 days, the bottom part of the stem suddenly turns brown, incredibly soft, and really slimy. Instead of magnificent white and shiny roots, you have basically only produced a cloudy and smelly broth. But what exactly went wrong beneath the water's surface? Most people mistakenly believe that clear tap water alone is completely sufficient to magically create new life. However, this is a widespread and dangerous misconception. Normal tap water often lacks the substances the plant urgently needs at this moment, but instead contains bacteria that penetrate the fresh, injured tissue of the plant. The open wound of the cutting is like a free feast for microscopic organisms. If the small plant no longer has its own energy to defend itself against this attack, rot always wins in the end. Imagine you have a fresh wound on your finger and you keep it in warm water for days. It would get infected immediately. To avoid this fatal mistake from now on, we must transform the water into an actively protective and nourishing environment. We have to help the cutting, and exactly at this crucial point, our first magic ingredient comes into play, completely changing the game. It is something that almost all of you have in your own kitchen right now. I am talking about common raw honey. Yes, you heard that absolutely right. Half a teaspoon of honey can make the difference between a rotten plant and a true rooting miracle. Many people are initially skeptical when they hear this. They immediately think that the sugar in the water should attract bacteria. But here we must immediately dispel a big myth. Raw honey is not just sweet syrup. It is an incredible natural miracle cure that has been enriched with special enzymes by bees. If you briefly dip the stem of your fresh cutting in a little honey before placing it in water, or dissolve a small amount in the glass of water, something absolutely amazing happens. The honey wraps around the open and injured cut of the plant like an invisible protective bandage. This method is so old and proven that our grandparents already used it in the garden long before expensive products from the garden center existed. It is the purest form of a natural plant pharmacy. But let's take a closer look at what science says behind this fascinating home remedy. Why exactly does honey work so incredibly well? The main reason lies in the extremely strong antibacterial and antifungal properties that raw honey naturally possesses. When the plant is in the water, fungal spores and putrefactive bacteria immediately try to penetrate the fine conductive pathways of the stem. Honey acts here as an impenetrable firewall. It contains small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, which has a natural disinfecting effect without burning or damaging the sensitive plant tissue. At the same time, it provides the plant, which has been separated from its mother plant by the cut and is under massive stress, with a quick dose of easily usable energy. This is exactly like taking a glucose tablet after an extremely exhausting marathon. The plant immediately uses this obtained energy to stop fighting diseases, and instead dedicates it entirely to the production of new cells and, therefore, to the long-awaited root growth. It is a perfect biological cycle that we can trigger with just a drop of honey. To make everything a little clearer, I would like to give you a brilliant practical example. Imagine you want to propagate a beautiful rubber tree, that is, a ficus. These plants are known for secreting a white and sticky milky sap when cut, and for starting to rot extremely quickly in a glass of water. They are true little divas when it comes to propagation, but if you now take the freshly cut ficus branch, briefly dry the white sap with a clean cloth, and then carefully dip the end in pure organic honey, you will experience a true miracle. Then place it in a glass of room-temperature water. You will see that the dreaded rot is completely absent. Instead, small white dots will form on the cut after only 10 to 14 days. These are the so-called callus cells from which strong roots will sprout in the next step. Without the protective honey, this rubber tree cutting would simply rot sadly in 9 out of 10 cases. This simple example clearly shows how powerful natural remedies can be if we only know how to use them correctly. But honey is not our only secret for absolute success. There is a second ingredient, almost even more powerful, that will literally make your cuttings explode. If you by any chance have an aloe vera plant on your windowsill, then you are literally sitting on a gold mine for plant propagation. Aloe vera is not only a fantastic remedy for sunburn on our human skin, but the pure gel from its thick leaves contains natural salicylic acid. This acid is extremely important in botany. It acts as a natural rooting hormone and sends strong chemical signals directly to the cells of the cut stem. The message is very simple and direct. Build new roots immediately. If we use this gel wisely, we can massively accelerate the plant's natural pace. It's almost as if we are putting our plant's engine into overdrive. The amino acids and vitamins it contains also act as a rich cocktail that optimally nourishes the cutting during the difficult transition phase. Once you have tried this, you will understand why so many experienced gardeners swear by this modest desert plant. So, how do you apply this method correctly in practice? It's super easy. Simply cut a small piece, about 2 inches or 5 centimeters long, from a bottom leaf of your aloe vera plant. The mother plant can handle this without any problem, and the wound closes very quickly on its own. Then use a small spoon to scrape the clear and slimy gel from the inside of the leaf. Make absolutely sure to avoid the yellowish liquid directly under the green skin, as this can be slightly irritating. Puree this pure and clear gel with a little warm water until a slightly cloudy liquid forms. Now, place your cuttings exactly in this aloe water. You will hardly believe how quickly small root tips suddenly appear, even on very difficult plants. It is an absolutely fascinating process. If you are in a real hurry, You can also simply stick the cut end of the cutting directly into the thick and fleshy aloe leaf, and then plant everything together in the soil. The gel protects the wound and continuously supplies hormones until the roots are strong enough. That is pure botanical magic. Here, we must absolutely clarify another very big myth that the gardening industry likes to keep alive. Very often, colorful advertisements try to convince us that we have to buy expensive and chemically produced rooting powders in plastic containers to grow plants successfully. That is simply wrong. These artificial preparations often contain synthetic indole-3 butyric acid. Yes, they generally work, but they also carry risks. If you use just a little too much of this powder, you literally burn the sensitive tissue of the plant and achieve exactly the opposite. The plant dies. The natural alternatives, such as the honey or aloe vera gel we just described, on the other hand, are completely harmless. You basically cannot overdose them. They work in perfect harmony with the nature of the plant, instead of overwhelming it with a massive chemical shock. When we understand that nature already invented the perfect solutions to its own problems millions of years ago, we not only save a lot of money, but we also achieve significantly healthier and more robust plants in the long run. Let's now come to a secret so old that it is said even the ancient Romans knew it. It is the absolute holy grail of plant propagation, and won't cost you a single cent. I am talking about the legendary willow water. If you have a willow tree near you, whether it's a weeping willow or a corkscrew willow, then you have nature's strongest medicine right at your doorstep. The bark of the willow is packed with natural salicylic acid and indole-3 butyric acid. These are exactly the highly effective hormones that are artificially recreated in expensive specialized products in the lab. The willow uses these hormones to be able to grow extremely fast by itself. If you simply stick a cut willow branch upside down in moist soil, it will still start to root. That's how strong the life force of this tree is. And the brilliant news is that we can easily extract this concentrated power and then pass it on to our own weaker indoor plants. It is the ultimate booster that makes even branches root, where all other methods have failed miserably before. Making your own willow water is a wonderful little afternoon project. You simply go out and collect some very young green willow branches. It is important that you really take the fresh and flexible tips from this year because that's where the concentration of the coveted hormones is highest. Then cut these small branches into short pieces of about 1 inch or 2 to 3 centimeters. Put 2 handfuls of these chopped pieces into a large glass and pour boiling water over them, just as if you were preparing a strong herbal tea. Then let everything sit in a quiet place for at least 24 hours. After that, simply strain the branches. The brownish liquid that now remains is pure liquid gold for your cuttings. Now, simply place your freshly cut indoor plant shoots completely in this willow water for the first 2 days. They will absorb the hormones like a sponge. After that, you can transfer them to normal water. The impulse for root formation will have already been irrevocably established. It works so incredibly well that you could almost call it an unfair advantage. We have now talked a lot about magic additives, but we must not forget the absolute basic element that represents 80% of the success. We are talking about the water itself. What water do you use? If you simply open the tap and let cold water run over your cuttings, you could be making the first serious mistake. Tap water in many cities is often heavily chlorinated or contains a lot of lime, which can clog the sensitive pores of the plants. Chlorine is added to kill bacteria in drinking water. For us humans, this is safe in these small amounts. But for a delicate and freshly cut plant, it is a huge stress signal. If you want to guarantee the perfect start, it is best to use collected rainwater. This is naturally soft and has the perfect acidity level. If you don't have a balcony, you can also simply boil your normal tap water and then let it cool down completely. Alternatively, you can simply leave the glass of water uncovered for 24 hours before placing the plant in it. This allows the harmful chlorine to evaporate completely into the room air. A small change with a massive impact. Another fascinating detail about the water is the invisible factor of oxygen. Plant roots need to breathe. That sounds strange at first since they live underground. But it is the absolute truth. If the water remains still in a glass on a warm windowsill for a long time, it gradually loses its bound oxygen. The water stagnates and literally suffocates the tiny new budding root tips. Therefore, it is an absolutely fatal mistake not to touch the water for weeks. You have to change the water regularly. The perfect rhythm for this is approximately every 3 or 4 days. This brings fresh and vital oxygen into the glass. But beware, the next trap lurks right here. When you change the water, please do not rinse the glass with aggressive dish soap, because even the smallest soap residues are pure poison for the seedlings. Simply rinse it thoroughly with clean, hot water. Some plant professionals even throw a small piece of real charcoal into the glass of water. The charcoal acts as a natural filter, keeps the water crystal clear for longer, and biologically prevents the spread of harmful bacteria. Hablemos de un factor que casi siempre se olvida por completo, aunque decide la vida y la muerte de tu esqueje: la temperatura. Imagine being thrown naked into a cold lake. You would use all your energy just trying not to freeze to death. Exactly the same thing happens to your cutting if the glass of water is too cold. Almost all plants originally come from the tropics or subtropics. They need heat to stimulate the division of their cells. If the glass of water is next to a drafty window and the water cools down to 59 or 60 degrees, that is, 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, the plant completely freezes its growth. Nothing happens. Zero. The perfect range for extremely fast rooting is between 72 and 79 degrees, or 22 and 26 degrees Celsius. That is cozy and warm. If your windowsill is cold in winter, make sure to place a thick book or a small piece of styrofoam under the glass. Some growers even use special small heating mats for plants. Make sure the water is always comfortably at room temperature when you change it. A sudden jet of ice-cold tap water puts the plant in a state of literal shock and can destroy weeks of hard work in seconds. In addition to temperature, light, naturally, also plays a gigantic role. We have all learned that plants need the sun to photosynthesize and get energy. That is absolutely correct. But with cuttings, the world looks a little different. It is a big mistake to place the glass with a delicate cutting directly under the blazing midday sun in a south-facing window. The logic seems to be that more sun means more energy. But the case is exactly the opposite. The cutting doesn't even have roots yet to pump enough water to the leaves. If the hot sun now hits the leaves, the plant evaporates an incredible amount of water to cool itself down. But since no water comes up from below, the cutting dies miserably of thirst, even though it is knee-deep in water. It is a cruel irony. The ideal place is bright, but without direct sunlight. An east-facing window or a place a bit deeper in the room is perfect. The light gives a signal of life, but without causing stressful sunburn. Soft, indirect light is the absolute key to great success here. Let's move on to the technique that happens before the glass of water. The perfect cut. An incorrect cut is like a bad surgery. It greatly delays healing. The most important golden rule here is to always cut at an exact 45-degree angle. Many people simply break the stem directly with their fingernails or use blunt kitchen scissors. This literally crushes the sensitive interior of the stem. The conductive pathways become blocked, and the plant cannot absorb water later. But if you use a razor-sharp knife, previously disinfected, and make a clean and angled cut in the stem, you greatly enlarge the open area. This means the plant has a much larger surface area to absorb water and our great honey or willow hormones. And there is another advantage to the angle. When the cutting rests on the bottom of the glass, it doesn't lie flat. It only touches the bottom of the glass at a tiny point. This allows the water to circulate beautifully under the wound and prevents a dirty layer from forming at the bottom end. It is pure geometry at the service of nature. But even the cleanest cut is absolutely useless if you cut in the completely wrong place. This is probably the best-kept secret of professional gardeners. Roots do not grow randomly anywhere on the stem. They grow almost exclusively from the so-called leaf node. This is the small bump on the stem from which a new leaf normally sprouts. This node contains an extremely large number of cells capable of dividing, essentially the stem cells of the plant. If you simply cut your cutting in the middle of a smooth piece of stem, it can try with all its might, but roots will form there only with extreme difficulty. You should always cut just below a leaf node. Then carefully remove the lowest leaf from this node so that the node itself is completely exposed. It is exactly this bare node that must now remain below the water's surface. From here, the new roots will launch into the water like little white rockets. Once you have understood this anatomical secret of plants, your success rate will jump to 100% overnight. A question I am asked with incredible frequency is, how many leaves should I actually leave on my cutting? The temptation is often great to cut a huge branch with 20 leaves because you want to have the largest possible plant at the end. But that is a fatal error in reasoning. Remember what we said about the energy balance. Every leaf on this branch demands water and nutrients from the plant to stay alive. But a cutting without roots is like a person trying to breathe through a straw while climbing a mountain. It is completely overwhelmed. The magic number for the perfect cutting is 2 to a maximum of 3 medium-sized leaves at the top. Everything else, especially the lower leaves that would hang in the water and rot there anyway, you must cut off mercilessly. Don't worry, the plant will develop new leaves as soon as it has roots. If the top leaf is extremely large, like in a monstera, for example, you can even cut the leaf in half with scissors. This looks a bit strange for a few weeks, but it radically reduces the evaporation surface and saves the plant's life. Despite the best intentions and tricks, unfortunately, it can sometimes happen that a cutting starts to darken and soften. If you see rot starting, do not panic. All is not lost yet. You just have to act quickly. Take the cutting out of the water immediately and wash it under warm water. Take a very sharp knife and generously cut off the rotten part until you see healthy, light green tissue again. And now comes an emergency trick from the pharmacy. Get a 3% hydrogen peroxide solution. This is an extremely mild disinfectant that is also used for small scratches on children. Add a small splash to fresh water and place the clean cutting in it. The hydrogen peroxide immediately kills all remaining putrefactive bacteria. And what's even more brilliant, it decomposes into pure oxygen in the water. This extra boost of oxygen is exactly what the sick plant needs right now to recover and make a new attempt at root formation. It is like medical resuscitation for your beloved indoor plants. Suppose everything went perfectly. You used honey, the temperature was right, and now wonderful thick white roots are hanging from your cutting in the glass of water. Now comes the trickiest phase of all, where a surprising number of beginners fail: the move from the glass of water to real soil. If you simply stick the cutting into dry and hard potting soil now, it will suffer a terrible shock. The roots that have formed in the water are so-called water roots. They are extremely fine, soft, and completely untrained. They first have to get used to the harsh environment of the soil. The best way to mitigate the shock is a gradual transition. Simply add a small spoonful of fine potting soil to your glass of water every day. The water will become cloudier and thicker as a result. After about a week, you will have a kind of mush in the glass. During this time, the delicate roots have slowly gotten used to the texture and nutrients of the soil. When you finally plant the plant in a pot, it won't feel any stress and will continue to grow happily immediately, as if nothing had happened. To make this transition absolutely foolproof, I would like to share with you the mini greenhouse trick. When the young plant is in its new pot, its roots are initially not strong enough to satisfy all the water needs of the leaves. The humidity in a normal living room is simply too low. The leaves will wither quickly. To prevent this, simply take a clear plastic bag or a large freezer bag. Carefully place this bag over the entire pot and plant from above. Blow in a little air so that the leaves do not touch the plastic, and lightly seal the bag at the bottom. In this way, you have built a perfect small greenhouse in seconds. The moisture that the leaves evaporate is trapped in the bag and is immediately absorbed again by the plant. You only need to briefly remove the bag once a day to let in fresh air and prevent mold. After about 1 to 2 weeks, you can remove the bag completely. Your new plant is now firmly anchored in the soil and ready to conquer your home as a strong and healthy plant. All this knowledge might seem overwhelming at first glance, but basically, it's simply understanding and imitating nature. Plants want to live, and they want to grow. They are incredible survival artists. All we have to do is remove the obstacles from their path and provide a little help. Whether it's the sticky gold of honey, the healing power of aloe vera, or the ancestral knowledge about the hormonal miracle of willow water. If you combine these simple tools with the right cutting techniques and knowledge about temperature and water quality, you will never have to throw away a rotten cutting again. You will be able to grow an army of beautiful, healthy plants from a single beautiful branch, which you can then proudly give to your friends and family. That is the true joy of gardening. It's not just a hobby. It's the creation of new life from the smallest beginnings. And now you are perfectly equipped to perform exactly these miracles on your own windowsill. And there we have it. Who would have thought that the secret to incredibly fast and healthy roots was hidden in your kitchen or in the garden all along? The most important thing we learned today is that it's not artificial chemicals, but raw honey, willow water, or aloe vera that are the strongest allies for our cuttings. Combined with the correct cut just below the leaf node, the perfect room temperature water, and vital oxygen, rot is finally a thing of the past starting today. You now have the absolute professional knowledge to create a true plant miracle from any small branch. It's almost as if you have a green magic wand in your hand. If these secrets have changed the way you look at the plants in your home, please subscribe to our channel. We are unearthing the history and methods they tried to bury. Let's plant the future together. The next botanical treasure will be revealed soon. Don't forget to leave a like on the video to support our work.